I think you die the way you live. So Captain Kirk always had these grotesque things happening.
It was March 2024. William Shatner sat for an interview promoting his documentary, You Can Call Me Bill. At 93 years old, the actor who gave life to Captain James T. Kirk looked decades younger than his age.
You've complained that this planet is a mineralogical treasure house if you had the equipment to get at it.
But when asked about Star Trek, something shifted in his voice. The beauty of so many of those shows, he said quietly. The excellence of the writing.
I remember when I saw the pilot that they had made, and it was wonderful, a wondrous pilot.
All those friends of mine who were 3 years in the making. For nearly 60 years, Shatner has carried Star Trek with him. He fought rubber monsters on cardboard sets. He delivered speeches about humanity's potential while wearing a uniform that became more iconic than any military decoration. He screamed Khan's name so powerfully it became cultural shorthand for betrayal. But at 93, looking back at the franchise that defined him, Shatner sees something different now. Not just the fame or the legacy, but the intimacy of creating something that changed millions of lives. The captain who almost wasn't. William Shatner wasn't supposed to be Captain Kirk. Jeffrey Hunter played Captain Christopher Pike in Star Trek's first pilot, The Cage. The network rejected it. Too cerebral, they said. Not enough action. But NBC did something unprecedented. They ordered a second pilot with a mostly new cast. Gene Roddenberry needed a different kind of captain. Someone who could bring humor and humanity to balance the philosophical weight. Shatner got the call. He had been working steadily in television.
They used to say if a man could fly, he'd have wings. But he did fly. He discovered.
Appearing in everything from westerns to The Twilight Zone. But this role was different. Kirk wasn't just an action hero. He was a leader who valued diplomacy over violence, who questioned orders when morality demanded it, who believed in second chances even for his enemies. Shatner brought something unexpected to the Enterprise. Where the first pilot was dry and intellectual, he made Kirk warm and passionate. He delivered Roddenberry's philosophy with emotional conviction that made audiences care. And for 3 seasons, he became the face of a show that would never really end. The Gorn and the power of belief, Shatner said in a 2016 Empire interview, and say they love when I fight the Gorn. The Gorn episode, Arena, featured Shatner wrestling with a man in a rubber lizard suit on a soundstage painted to look like an alien planet. It looks ridiculous now. Everyone knows it. But Shatner understood something crucial. When audiences first watched Star Trek, they took it at face value. They believed. The episode's message mattered more than the production values. Kirk refuses to kill the Gorn captain, even when given the chance, choosing mercy over vengeance. That moral choice, delivered with Shatner's conviction, made the rubber suit irrelevant. What mattered was Kirk's humanity, his refusal to become a murderer even when fighting a monster. Shatner committed fully to every moment. He sold the reality of that alien world through sheer performance. And decades later, when children approach him about that fight, they're not laughing at the costume. They're remembering the lesson. That's what great acting does. The kiss that made history. Star Trek's most controversial episode almost didn't air. Plato's Stepchildren featured Kirk and Lieutenant Uhura sharing television's first interracial kiss. The network was terrified. Certain southern stations refused to broadcast it. The production team discussed cutting around it entirely, but they filmed it anyway, and Shatner made sure it stayed. The scene shows Kirk and Uhura forced to kiss by telekinetic aliens. They had no choice, which gave the network plausible deniability. But the kiss still happened. On national television in 1968, during the height of the civil rights movement, a white captain and a black communications officer shared an intimate moment. It was revolutionary. It was dangerous. It was necessary. Shatner and Nichelle Nichols understood the weight of what they were doing. They performed the scene with dignity and grace, making it tender despite the coercive circumstances. The episode aired. Some stations didn't show it, but millions of viewers saw it. And television changed forever. Kirk became more than entertainment. He became a symbol of what America could be. The rage that became immortal. Shatner sits in an interview discussing Star Trek II. He's asked about the most iconic scene in franchise history. The moment when Kirk, trapped and outsmarted by Khan, screams his enemy's name into the void. That scream, exaggerated and theatrical, should have been ridiculous. Instead, it became legend. Memes would be created from it decades later. Actors would parody it. Everyone would know it. But for Shatner, the scene was pure emotion. Khan had killed his crew, stolen his ship, left him buried alive on a dying planet. Kirk's rage was primal. The scream wasn't planned or calculated. It was the sound of a man pushed beyond his limits. Shatner gave it everything, his voice breaking with fury and helplessness. The brilliance of Khan wasn't just Ricardo Montalban's performance or the submarine-style space battles. It was how Shatner made Kirk vulnerable. This wasn't the invincible captain of the series. This was a man aging, losing, watching his world crumble. That scream contained all of it, and it worked. The death he couldn't accept. "I'm sitting in Harve Bennett's office," Shatner recalled, and he's describing the death of Spock. "I'm shocked." "You mean we're going to kill Spock?" The scene Bennett described became one of cinema's most emotional moments. Spock sacrifices himself to save the Enterprise, Kirk pressing his hand against the glass separating them. But Shatner saw it differently. Kirk would put up his hand to the door, he told Bennett, and they would touch and slide down. Shatner acted out the scene in that office, plotting how Kirk would respond to losing his best friend. The producers filmed it exactly as he envisioned. Kirk's grief, his disbelief, his inability to accept what was happening. Shatner understood that Spock's death wasn't just about Leonard Nimoy's character. It was about Kirk learning that even he couldn't save everyone. That command comes with losses that break you. The scene devastated audiences, but it also set up something unexpected. Spock's resurrection in the next film. Kirk's refusal to let his friend stay dead became the driving force. The friendship that defined everything. Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley were more than co-stars to Shatner. They were pals, real friends made during 3 years of 18-hour days on the Enterprise set. That camaraderie shows in every scene. The ease between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy wasn't acting. It was genuine affection between 3 men who spent more time together than with their own families. Shatner remembers sitting on set between takes, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, just talking. Those quiet moments mattered as much as the dramatic scenes. They built trust. They created shorthand. When Kirk looked to Spock for logic or McCoy for humanity, Shatner was looking to actual friends whose perspectives he valued. The loss of both men hit Shatner hard. He famously didn't attend Nimoy's funeral, choosing a charity event instead. He has expressed regret about that decision. "Leonard died," he said simply. "They got a statue up. It's not going to last." At 93, Shatner understands what really matters. Not monuments, but the memories of smoking and laughing between scenes. The regret he still carries. When asked about his biggest professional regret, Shatner doesn't hesitate. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, the film he directed, the movie that nearly killed the franchise. "I lost my movie before I even started it," he told The Hollywood Reporter. He had wanted novelist Eric Van Lustbader to write a story about Spock feeling out of place, an American in Japan metaphor applied to a Vulcan. The studio couldn't agree on novel rights. Lustbader walked away. The script went downhill from there. The film became infamous. Fans still joke about Kirk fighting God, about Spock's rocket boots, about plot holes large enough to fly the Enterprise through. Shatner knows it. He directed it. He has to live with it. "That's the popular view," he says defensively. "It made almost as much as anybody else's." But even he doesn't sound convinced. At 93, he can joke about it. But the disappointment lingers. He wanted to prove he could direct Star Trek as well as Leonard Nimoy had. Instead, he proved how hard it is to make these films work. The death that wasn't an ending. Kirk dies in Star Trek Generations. crushed under a bridge on a distant planet, saving people he barely knew. Many fans hated it. They wanted something grander for their captain. A death in space, surrounded by his crew going out in glory. Instead, Kirk dies in dirt, far from the Enterprise, with only Picard witnessing it. Shatner defends the choice. "I had written a scenario for a book called The Return," he said, "in which I bring Kirk back." The death scene was emotional to film. Kirk's last words are, "Oh my," delivered with Shatner's trademark pause before the final word. Some found it perfect, others found it anticlimactic. But Shatner understood something important. Kirk spent his life facing impossible odds and winning. Dying wasn't a failure. It was the only adventure left. Years later, Shatner would write novels bringing Kirk back to life. The fans wanted more. He wanted more. But in that moment on the bridge, Kirk's story felt complete. He lived boldly. He died saving others. What more could a captain do? The space flight he never forgot. In 2021, at 90 years old, William Shatner did something impossible. He went to actual space. Blue Origin launched him in a capsule above the atmosphere. For minutes, he floated in weightlessness, looking down at Earth. When he landed, Jeff Bezos waited to celebrate. Instead, Shatner wept uncontrollably. "I saw more clearly than I ever have," he later explained, "the writhing, slow death of Earth and we on it." The experience wasn't joyful. It was terrifying. He saw how fragile our planet is. A rock with paper-thin air. 2 miles of atmosphere protecting everything we love. And we're destroying it. The man who spent decades pretending to explore space learned that the real final frontier is saving our own world. It changed him, made him more urgent about environmental causes, more aware of mortality, more desperate to make people understand. Kirk explored strange new worlds seeking knowledge. Shatner went to space and brought back grief, but also purpose. The mission continues even at 93. The legacy. He finally accepts. At 93, William Shatner looks back at Star Trek with something he lacked for decades: acceptance. For years, he seemed uncomfortable with Kirk's shadow. He played Denny Crane on Boston Legal, winning Emmys, and proving he had more than one role. He recorded spoken-word albums that became cult classics. He worked constantly, demonstrating range and versatility, but Kirk always followed him. Fans couldn't separate the actor from the captain. Now, he embraces it. The beauty of so many shows, he says, the excellence of the writing, all those friends, the intimacy of doing a series. He's not running from Kirk anymore. He understands that captaining the Enterprise wasn't just a job. It was a privilege, a chance to embody hope during turbulent times, to show that humans could evolve beyond war and prejudice, to boldly go where television hadn't gone before. Shatner gave Kirk swagger and warmth, turning philosophical scripts into emotional experiences, and Kirk gave Shatner immortality. At conventions, he meets people whose lives were changed by episodes filmed 60 years ago. That's the real legacy. Not the action figures or the catchphrases, but the lives touched. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the legendary captain who made Star Trek more than science fiction and want to explore more untold stories from the golden age of television and beyond, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're uncovering the secrets, the emotions, and the truths behind Hollywood's most iconic moments every single week. Thanks for watching, and live long and prosper.